Good morning, everybody. I want to talk a bit about the tariff. Among all of Trump administration's policies after taking office, tariff is perhaps the most important one, uh, for sure, one of the most important ones. Uh, so there are a lot of questions about tariffs, right? There have been big discussions. Is tariff overall a good policy or not a good policy? And we know that the main motive behind the tariffs uh, by Trump and also by Biden, and before that by Trump again and even Obama. The main motive behind all of this is the protectionist policies of China. Other countries as well, but mainly China, right? Now I see a lot of comments online. A lot of people they say that if China is subsidizing their own manufacturers, if China wants to subsidize my lifestyle, I would happily take it. So there are a couple of problems with that view. All right, now subsidizing means essentially pricing under the cost. They call it predatory pricing or under cost pricing. Simple. Also, which leads to dumping, as they say, dumping. Now the problem is that we have laws against it internally, right? In US, if you have a company is pricing under cost, if there's a chance of that leading to a monopoly, then that company will be fined. Okay, so we have a law for that. We can discuss if that's a good law or not. I think it probably is, but that's a different story. We as a society, as a nation, came to the conclusion that we need to have that law, okay, because we don't want people just kept being put out of business because somebody can raise some funds and come up with this scheme and price under the cost and drive everyone else out of business forcefully, right? And then create a monopoly. So if you think about it for I would say 5 to 10 minutes, you will come to the conclusion that the scheme would only lead to a race to the bottom, and that's why we came up with this law. Anyways, we have this law internally, which means that if someone is doing it, if another company or a country outside of US is doing it, we would be applying the same law to them as well, right? We would treat them similarly, right? And so China has been doing this for a long time, all right? China has been doing this for a long time. Their government has been providing massive amount of subsidies to businesses. Nowadays, I have to say that it is more strategically targeted in China. Now let's look at that. Let's see, what were the common Chinese practices before and what are they now. So, China, I give you an example before going into the details of that. So this is an anecdotal example, right? But give you an idea, and then we can go into the details and numbers, right? I remember it was 2000, I would say 8 or 9, and I think 9. And my one of my friends, he had to buy iPhone charger, right? If you remember, at that time, iPhone adapter was not of great quality, and it would tear and all that. So he looked and found a pack of two adapters with wires, adapter and cable. I think he found on eBay, and this was being shipped from China, and it was $2. Everything included $2. I remember we were working in a research lab at UMass Amherst, right? I remember he was telling us, and I was thinking, how can this be $2? I mean, that's just the shipping price from China with more than that, right? And we know why, because China, for a long time, has been paying the shipping price for their exporters, all right? And that was their official policy. It was before. I don't know if it is now as well, but I know at that time it was for sure. All right, so that's that. I mean, just one example. Now, going into the numbers, right? China, they estimate that, I mean, we do have some protections for our businesses over here, right, as well, right, particularly farming products. But the research shows that China's production of their businesses is 3 to 9 times that of US and Europe, right? So imagine if we increase our protection of our manufacturers, domestic manufacturers, right, by let's say 6 times. I mean, they already are subsidized to a little bit, uh, right? A little bit, but if we increase it 6 times, well, I'm sure they would be much more competitive in international markets as well, right? All right, so that's that. That's one number for you. Now, China is, recently they have been doing it, as I said, strategically. They have been looking mostly at electric vehicles. All right, there's research showing that between 2009 and 2023, China, spent, or say, subsidized their EV industry by $230 billion. All right, which probably led to us subsidizing EV as well, right? All those $10,000 of tax rebate that you get after buying a Tesla, you used to get after buying a Tesla, and that was probably due due to this. And they do the same thing for critical minerals in China and also for semiconductors. All right. Again, the semiconductor thing was probably why we started clashing with them in Biden administration, and we are in clash with them right now as well. All right. Now, uh, so due to all of this, of course, both EU and US, they imposed high tariffs on China now. Now, this was China. How about the EU? Do they practice the same or similar undercost pricing as well? They do a little bit. The prominent example is Airbus. Airbus, and overall research found that EU, provided over $18 billion of subsidies to Airbus, which again is why we pamper Boeing so much in the US. You remember the dire situation that Boeing had when COVID hit. Remember, Boeing at that time, and I think it's still to this day, has more debt than the entire worth of its its stocks. At least in 2019, it had. I'm pretty sure it's still the same thing, if not worse. And a lot of people were worried that Boeing is going to go under, right? Or that there's going to be panic selling, and their stock is going to be worth nothing. And then U.S. government backed them and signaled that they will back them at any cost. You can go over the news that was there at the beginning of COVID, and you can read or watch all about that. Again, so that immediately shows you, Boeing quality of production, right? I think I don't need to explain that to you guys nowadays how it is compared to before. Okay. Now, this model, this protectionist model that is run by EU, China to a great extent, and somewhat by US as well, you can immediately see it leading to a kind of a ridiculous system, right? And Boeing and Airbus, there are examples, and then there are others as well. So just so it used to be that WTO, the World Trade Organization, could enforce, and then different countries, they would file complaint, and WTO would investigate and come up with a verdict. Now, but right now, as you can see with UN and WTO and other and WHO and other world organizations, they don't have much power, right? They don't have the power of informants that they don't have the, I would say, the approval and acceptability that they had before, that permeability that their judgment had before among the countries and nations. Now they don't have that. That authority is not felt anymore, right? It started by COVID, of course, and after that, by generally all the wars that the UN could not manage, and then all the trade conflicts that WTO could not manage, right? So that authority is not there anymore. So absent of that authority, at this point, is up to the countries, right, to deal with tariffs and then protections. Now, EU has some differences with China, though I have to say that. Sure, they have some protections under agriculture. They have protection under green energy field, but a big difference between their protections and China is that they are transparent. They have transparent laws, and they even fine their own companies. Okay, even their own companies if they have undercost pricing. All right, so that's the difference between EU and China. Uh, so, so to summarize what I have discussed so far, the clash between these countries, the economic clash, the tariff war, is rooted essentially in the completely different economic model of these countries. U.S. its default is capitalism and free market and competition, right? That's U.S.'s default, right? It used to be like that, for example, right before, so that's the history of U.S., right? U.S. economic model. Now, EU not like that. EU, has been more socialist. They will have a little protection no matter what, right? And China is completely different story. China is an authoritarian, government. There is no one party. They have the authority. They have to run this massive country of 1.4 billion people. They have to feed this many people, right? They have to maintain, or they like to maintain a slash need to maintain uh, uh, a very disciplined system. I mean, their growth have been, amazing, no doubt about that, right? But they have their own problem. They have a different, government system than us. Okay, uh, and they are running, a large degree of protection for their domestic manufacturing. Okay, so three different systems, and they're clashing. No wonder, essentially, right? No wonder. Now let's say now let's focus and see if we can find a feeling, a measure of how much these protections are there on certain products, right? Like if you pick a particular product, can we see how much, right, is China's subsidies or domestic protection on that product? I'm going to go with the famous washing machine example, right? Washing machine, uh, the investigation done by U.S. International Trade Commission, that is in 2018, showed that they benefit from a 44.5% margin due to subsidies given by Chinese government to their manufacturers. Okay, so this is again by U.S. International Trade Commission. These are usually good statistics, and these are often independent government agencies. It's hard to get a better number than this. Okay? It's hard to get a better source than this. It's very hard, in fact. This might as well be the best source of the number. So again, 44.3 something like that percentage is they call it the dumping margin of washing machine. Now, of course, in response to that, if you were the U.S. president, you would say, okay, now I'm going to put a 44.5% of tariff on Chinese washing machines, right? We did we did, uh, but problem is we did much more than that. Right now, the current tariff that we have in washing machine, it's not only in washing machine, it's a whole bunch of items, and these tariffs they overlap on different Chinese products. Right now, we have, as I did research, we have something between 60% to 70% tariff on washing machine in China. The second problem is that in US, when we issue tariffs, when we set tariffs, right? A lot of times the tariff is set to the product regardless of the source of the product. Like the same tariff is applied to Chinese and Korean washing machines. Okay, a lot of times is it's like no. Now it's not like that, but it used to be before. In the first term of Donald Trump, it was a lot of tariffs. Even to this day, a lot of tariffs they apply to the to a specific product, regardless of the source of it. Okay, that's not good. That's not smart, right? If you could estimate the dumping margin just like this, then why not just slap that much tariff to the product coming from a particular country, right? Now, of course, some companies are doing tariff jumping, which means that they're moving production to US. Samsung and LG, the Korean two Korean companies, they moved production to Tennessee and South Carolina. Which in fact created some jobs over there. Price of washing machine is not that much higher. There are research online that shows that their price has gone up less than inflation, less than overall inflation. Again, interesting results. Now, what's the morale of this story, right? What's the morale of this story? The morale is that tariff is sometimes legitimate, right? That at least we can say now. Second, that there is a sweet spot, right? That if you slap more tariff, a larger tariff than that, you are just pushing your domestic consumer. And if you go below that, much below that point, then you are punishing your domestic manufacturer, right? So there's a sweet spot. You want to be around that sweet spot, right? So you want to be smart about it. You want to look at the numbers and be smart about it. All right. Now there are some cons to tariff as well. You see, when you do the blanket tariffs, right? Like I said, same percentage to every country, right? Even though the different countries they have different protections, on their manufacturers, right? If we put blanket tariffs on the product coming from every country, not as smart, not as smart, right? That's what. Another problem that is that in democracies like US particularly, the pay to play type of democracy, right? That massive amount of donations from companies and whoever to politicians who are running for office. There is a worry, and I would say not a worry. It's something it is something that is going on right now, that the manufacturers would be paying politicians to buy tariffs, right? To buy tariffs on their products, and that is something that us as consumers in US would definitely not want. So that was my summary of of protections in the world, in major countries and players. I will have some more videos on tariffs as well, digging a little deeper into the impacts of tariff policies and all that. You have a good day.